It's 10:12 a.m. on November 12. Over the open waters north of Puerto Cabello, a US-B-2 Spirit is cutting across the sky at high altitude when the calm breaks without warning. Inside the jet, a sharp alarm screams through the cockpit. The screen flashes a single message that stops both pilots cold. Fire control radar lock. They know exactly what that means. Someone on the ground is pointing a real weapon at them. At the same moment, inside a Venezuelan air defense trailer hidden on a hill, operators stare at their radar as the faint echo of the B-2 suddenly vanishes. The room goes silent except for the long rising beep of the tracking system struggling to hold on. No one speaks. No one blinks. Every person in that room knows they should call command before acting. But the commander's hand is already tightening around the radio. For a full second, everything hangs in the air. One choice on either side will decide what comes next. The moment the radar locked onto the B-2, this stopped being a simple patrol. The waters north of Venezuela are one of the tightest and most watched routes in the Caribbean. Cargo ships, oil tankers, and military aircraft move through this corridor day and night, and any sudden change here can affect the entire region. For the US, the B-2 on November 12 was flying a legal route in international airspace, something it had done many times before. But for Venezuela, especially during a week of intense air defense drills, that same flight looked far more alarming. This strip of sky is a pressure zone where every radar operator is told to stay alert, and every pilot knows that one wrong signal can flip routine into crisis. To Washington, the flight was meant to show presence and reassure allies. To Caracas, it was a reminder that a stealth aircraft could appear near their coastline without warning. That tension makes even normal movements feel like bold steps. Inside the Venezuelan control trailer, the stress was more than technical. Their drills were being watched by foreign advisors, and their commanders expected flawless performance. Losing the B-2's weak radar echo, even for a moment, felt like failure. For the bomber crew, the danger was immediate. A fire control radar lock is not a misunderstanding. It is the step right before a missile launch, and every trained pilot knows it. What raised the stakes even higher was timing. Both nations had been trading sharp statements for weeks. A single radar tone in the wrong moment could trigger a chain reaction far beyond the people in that cockpit or that trailer. That is why this matters. This wasn't just about one aircraft and one battery. It was about two sides staring at each other through cold screens, waiting to see who moved first. So let me ask you, in this kind of sky, who carries the bigger risk, the pilot trying to stay calm or the crew trying not to lose control? Press 1 if the B-2's presence was justified, or press 9 if Venezuela's fear pushed them too far. Inside the B-2 cockpit, the warning tone sliced through the calm like a blade. It didn't flicker. It stayed sharp and merciless. Captain Reed leaned forward, eyes locked on the red threat indicator. "Fire control lock," he said. His co-pilot reacted instantly, cycling through countermeasures with quick trained motions. They had flown long missions before, but nothing turns a quiet patrol into a fight faster than this alarm. Far below, inside the Venezuelan air defense trailer, the mood snapped from routine to panic. The radar operator watched the weak echo of the B-2 blink, fade, and vanish. She tapped the screen. "Contact unstable." The commander stepped closer, jaw tight. Losing a target during drills was bad. Losing one that looked like a US stealth bomber felt like danger. She ordered the fire control radar online. The operator hesitated, then activated it. The system hummed, sending a narrow beam upward. Inside the B-2, Reed felt the shift instantly. The tone spiked to max danger. "Countermeasures! Go!" Chaff burst behind them as the electronic warfare system filled the sky with interference. Inside the trailer, the radar picture dissolved into clutter. Ghost returns flickered everywhere. The operator switched frequencies, but each change made things worse. "They're jamming us," she said. To her, it meant a hostile aircraft was hiding. To the commander, it meant a strike could follow. Reed banked north, climbing to gain distance. The B-2 shook under the sudden move. He grabbed the radio. "Venezuelan battery, cease illumination. We are in international airspace." Static answered. He tried again. Nothing. Inside the trailer, their link to headquarters collapsed under the growing interference. Every call broke into noise. The commander stared at the silent radio. No orders, no guidance, no higher voice. She was alone with a decision she was never meant to make. For a moment, both sides froze in a fragile pause. The B-2 climbed. The fire control radar tried to keep a lock. The operators waited, breathing tight. Then the commander stepped forward, eyes fixed on the fading Echo. "Prepare for launch," she said. And with that, the skies over the Caribbean tilted toward disaster. If you saw this moment, would you call it caution or escalation? Press 1 or 9 to tell us. The moment the Venezuelan commander gave the order, the trailer snapped into motion. Operators sat straighter, screens brightened, and outside on the hill, the missile canisters lifted toward the sky with a slow, metallic click. No one said a word, but everyone felt the weight of crossing into a zone they could not step back from. Inside the B-2, the alarm changed again, deeper and more urgent. Reed didn't need to explain it. His co-pilot already knew. "They're powering the launcher," she said, eyes locked on the threat display. Reed pulled the bomber into a careful climb, trying to open the distance without triggering anything worse. Even a small movement felt dangerous now. In the trailer, the radar operator fought with the fading Echo. "Target unstable," she said. The commander leaned over her shoulder, watching the ghost-like blip appear and vanish. She didn't see radar limits. She saw a stealth aircraft shifting into attack mode. "Increase power," she ordered. The operator obeyed. The fire control beam surged. Inside the cockpit, the tone sharpened instantly. "Hard illumination," Reed said. The B-2's electronic countermeasures pushed back, but the boosted radar cut through parts of the interference. The threat light stayed solid. Reed tightened his grip on the controls. They were now fully inside the missile envelope. Back on the hill, the missile system flashed ready. The screens turned green. Operators glanced at their commander, hoping she would wait or try the radio again, but the interference was total. No help was coming from above. She was alone with a decision no one wanted. "Track and hold," she said. The system locked onto the B-2's last stable point, pushing the situation one step from a launch. Reed saw the threat display shift into a steady glow. "They've locked us hard," he said quietly. His co-pilot nodded, bracing herself. For a moment, the sky went still, as if holding breath for both sides. The B-2 climbed, the radar pushed, and the commander took one more step toward disaster. "Final targeting update," she ordered. And now the question falls to you. Was this caution or escalation? Press 1 or 9 to tell us what you think as we head into the next phase. The twist began quietly, hidden inside the radar noise. In the Venezuelan trailer, the commander believed she finally had a clear lock on the B-2, but the Echo she watched wasn't a stable target. It was a distorted return created by the bomber's jamming and the heavy coastal humidity. The radar treated the reflection as solid, even as it drifted a little farther with every sweep. Inside the B-2, Reed felt something shift too. The tone stayed solid, but the rhythm changed. The updates came slower, less sure, as if the radar on the ground was struggling. "Lock is unstable," his co-pilot said. It wasn't safety, but it was the first sign their countermeasures were starting to break through. On the hill, the commander saw the drifting Echo and assumed the opposite. To her, the bomber was slipping away to regroup or strike again. Determined not to lose it, she ordered, "Manual guidance update." The operator hesitated, then began typing small corrections, trusting instinct over data. Each input narrowed the path around a target that was only half real. Reed pushed the B-2 into sharper climbs and cuts. The jet trembled under the load. He fired more chaff, trying to break the radar picture completely. "Stay unpredictable," he said. In the trailer, the radar recalibrated. The Echo jumped, then settled again. The commander misread it as evasive action. She stepped forward. "Stand by for launch." The room went silent. Operators stared at the flickering return, unsure if they were seeing a threat or a trick. Up in the sky, Reed felt the alarm tighten. They were seconds from a launch window. No one on either side realized the truth. Venezuela was preparing to fire at a fading radar ghost, not the B-2. The launch came with a sound no one in the trailer would ever forget. A deep, rising roar shook the hill as the first missile shot out. Then another. Then another. 8 bright trails ripped into the sky at once, turning the quiet ridge into a wall of fire. Operators covered their ears as dust fell from the ceiling. The commander didn't move. This was the point of no return. High above, Reed felt the alarm spike into a violent, pulsing tone. "Missile launch!" his co-pilot shouted. Reed pulled the B-2 into a steep climb, then snapped left. The jet groaned under the strain, wings flexing as he forced the aircraft into maneuvers. It was never meant to perform at cruising altitude. Behind them, chaff burst into drifting silver clouds, while the defensive suite jammed every frequency it could reach. The first missile streaked upward, closing the distance in seconds. Reed dropped the B-2, then hauled it into a rising turn. The cockpit shook so hard the crew struggled to keep their hands steady. The warning display flashed again, another lock. "They're adjusting!" the co-pilot yelled. Reed pushed into another climb, vision narrowing as the G-forces hit. They had trained for this, but training never felt like this. On the hill, Venezuelan operators watched the missiles arc through the sky, unaware their guidance was locked onto a fading radar ghost. Everything looked clean. 8 perfect trajectories. The commander stood stiff, waiting for impact markers to appear. In the air, Reed shoved the B-2 into a brutal sideways slip. The first missile overshot, detonating high above their wing in a burst of fire. The shockwave rattled the cockpit. "Close!" the co-pilot gasped. The second missile chased the ghost, not the bomber, shooting off into empty sky. The third lost its lock and spiraled away until it vanished behind a cloud bank. Reed fought the controls, diving, climbing, cutting east. Every move stole a few more seconds. Every second meant another missile losing the target it thought it had. On the hill, one impact marker blinked out, then another, then all of them. Confusion spread as screens went quiet. The commander leaned in, stunned. No hits, no confirmation, nothing. In the cockpit, Reed leveled the B-2 at last. The alarms faded, the sky opened. "We're clear," he whispered. If you were in that cockpit or in that trailer, whose decision would you trust in those final seconds? Press 1 for the B-2 crew or 9 for the ground team. When the last missile faded from the B-2's warning screen, the sky turned quiet in a way that felt unreal. Reed kept the bomber steady, listening as the alarms went silent. His co-pilot checked systems again, confirming the thin damage on the wing hadn't spread. Only then did they breathe. They had escaped 8 missiles, but the weight of what happened stayed heavy. This wasn't a close call. It was an act that could shake the region. Down on the hill, near Puerto Cabello, the trailer sat in tense silence. Operators stared at their screens, trying to understand how an entire salvo had hit nothing. The commander kept her eyes locked on the radar, hoping for a trace of impact. None came. Radios crackled back to life, carrying rising panic from headquarters. Questions came fast. Who authorized the launch? Why wasn't confirmation received? Most of all, what would the response be? In Washington, the alert climbed the chain of command in minutes. A stealth bomber in international airspace had been targeted with 8 long-range missiles. Even though the B-2 survived, the message was clear. A red line had been crossed. Military planners reviewed every US asset in the Caribbean. Diplomats prepared emergency calls. Intelligence teams pulled satellite feeds. This wasn't something that could be brushed aside. It demanded a reaction. In Caracas, shock spread through ministries and command rooms. Senior officers demanded explanations. Advisors warned retaliation was likely. The defense network shifted to high alert. One decision on one hill had escaped the hands of those who made it. Inside the trailer, operators waited for orders, unsure what would come next. Some feared a strike within hours. Others wondered if they had triggered the largest crisis in years. The commander looked at her team, realizing this moment had leapt from a radar screen onto the world stage. High above the Caribbean, the B-2 turned north, leaving danger behind but carrying the memory of every second. A mission meant to show presence had become proof of how fast calm skies can turn into crisis. And as the bomber disappeared into the distance, the ripples of that morning were already spreading far beyond the horizon.